Call to order and recording of members present and absent.
Shane Hansen,
Present.
Karen Kane,
Here.
Jane McDermott,
Here.
Larry Parker,
Here.
Tiffany Slater.
Here. Open meeting compliance statement.
I, the undersigned clerk of the Board of Education of the Alva Independent School District Number 1 of Woods County, Oklahoma, certify that prior to December 15th of the last calendar year, the date, time, and place of the regular meeting was filed in the office of the county clerk of Woods County, Oklahoma. I certify that at least 24 hours prior to this meeting, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays, notice of the date, time, and place of the agenda was posted in prominent public view at the location of the meeting.
Thank you. Consent agenda. All the following items which concern reports and items of routine nature, normally approved by one board vote, unless any board member desires to have a separate vote on any or all of these items. The consent agenda consists of the discussion, consideration, and approval of the following. 3.1, addition of items of new business to the agenda.
There is none.
Minutes of the February 3rd, 2020 regular meeting. Approval of the finance report. Approval of the activity fund report. Approval of the activity fundraisers. Approval of the activity fund inter-account transfers. Approval of the child nutrition report. And 3.8, declare the following items as surplus.
Okay, we'll start with 3.2, our minutes from the February 3rd, 2020 regular meeting. Did not see any errors to the minutes. 3.3, our finance report. I have a couple of attachments on there, and they're not on Mrs. Tucker's, but I believe they're on yours. And so if you look at that first attachment, yes. Okay, you can see it. I've got a couple of different graphs on there, and it's a comparison. I've showed you this comparison before. It's a comparison of FY19 and FY20 in our revenue versus expenses. And you can see that traditionally, when you compare both years, FY19 to FY20, it's very similar in our expenses and our revenue. If you compare month to month, February FY19 to February FY20, we've actually collected more revenue. Part of that collection has come from federal programs and federal money that we've received. And I'll come back to that in just a second. If you compare our expenses year to year, we've actually spent less, and so we've kind of controlled some of those costs. So if you look at the graph or chart that has what we call chargeables, it has our gross production, our REA tax, and our motor vehicle tax. You can see on that, and it's on the very first attachment, you can see that we continue to see a significant decrease in our gross production collection. It was, however, up this past month, but when you start looking at it and comparing it from year to year, it's been down significantly. Any questions about finance report? Or we've got that attachment open. Okay, if we look at 3.4, our activity fund report, all of the activity funds are in good shape and healthy at this point. You'll continue to see revenue or deposits collected in our baseball account as they continue to collect money from their ad sales or banner sales that they advertise in the outfield. 3.6, activity inter-account transfers. And so I want to thank Mrs. Durkee for her work on this. The first inter-account transfer attachment that you'll see is from the Alva middle school to high school track. They worked concession at middle school football games, and so you can see that amount there. And then we have on the second attachment, this is the division or the distribution of all of the high school concession to all of the different programs that have worked concession throughout basketball and football. And so to total all that up, we generated $33,701 income in concession, and we were able to distribute $16,000 of that when you take into account your cost and then leaving startup money for next year. So we were able to help all our programs out through that distribution. 3.7, Berlita has been out, and we will update our child nutrition report next month. And 3.8, we do not have any items to surplus this month. Are there any questions on the consent agenda? If there are none, I would recommend its approval.
Motion to accept 3.1, 3.2 to 3.8 as presented. Thank you.
Second.
Slater? Yes. Parker?
Yes.
McDermott?
Aye.
Kane?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Vote to approve purchase order encumbrances for the following funds for fiscal year FY20. 4.1 general fund as referenced. 4.2 building fund as referenced. 4.3 child nutrition fund as referenced. And 4.4 gift fund as referenced.
Okay, we'll start with, excuse me, with 4.1, our general fund. A couple of the purchase orders that may stand out to you on those. The first one, number 578, is a purchase order with Merrifield's Office Supply for $7,500. This is an open purchase order for district supplies. Purchase order number 579, that is contracted physical therapy services that we provide for a homebound student for $3,000. Purchase order number 580, that is football protective equipment, shoulder pads, and helmet, $4,976.92. And then purchase order number 596, that is with Peak Environment, and that is for spraying our lawns throughout the district, I believe that'll happen over spring break. 4.2, our building fund, just nothing out of that at this point. 4.3, child nutrition. We have two purchase orders to point out to you there. Number 25 is the AutoChlor system, and that is for $3,000, and that's dishwashing products that we use at each site. And then purchase order number 27 with US Foods. That is an open purchase order that will hopefully get us through the remainder of the year with our food purchasing. And then there is nothing out of the gift fund. Are there any questions with our general fund, building fund, nutrition fund, or gift fund that I can answer or find the answer to?
You don't have any attachments?
I'm trying to figure it out.
Okay.
I don't think she has access to the attachments. I used to, so I'm wondering if I'm doing something wrong.
Do you normally not have access to?
I have before, yeah, so I'm wondering.
Yeah, you
It's
should.
just been a while since
That's
I've
okay.
been in
That's all right.
Cindy.
That's okay. No problem.
I'll figure it out.
Any questions that I can answer fine for you? If not,
I guess we
would
get
recommend
spoiled.
their approval.
Yeah, that's good.
That's kind of nice.
Make a motion to approve the purchase order encumbrances as referenced in 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, and 4.4.
I second.
Hanson?
Yes.
Kane?
Yes.
McDermott?
Aye.
Parker?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Number 5, superintendent's report. Strategic plan communications.
Just might update you on our strategic plan from the resources goal area. I've been in communication with our architect and via email, construction manager. And so one of the delays with some of our construction or with actually the completion of drawings has been topographical survey. And so they just completed that about 2 weeks ago, and you probably see the flags up at the high school. And so they're now in the process of drawing those plans for not only the track, but then they met with Mr. McClure and looked at the art room with him. He made some suggestions about what he would like to see. And so what will happen over the next few weeks is they want to have those completed before our April board meeting so that I can not only present them to the committee, but then bring them to the board for your review and your approval. Any questions? Okay.
Retirements, resignations, and reassignments.
We have one retirement from Rose Stout, our Spanish teacher. Rose has done an outstanding job for us. She will be missed. We wish her the very best of luck And we'll look at how we're going to find a replacement for her in the coming weeks.
Communications.
I would like to introduce Christy Spruill, and she will introduce her guest. Christy came and met with me, it's been maybe a month ago, and we were talking about some new exciting things coming to the area, and so I wanted her to be able to come and present her information to the board. So Christy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Otto, I appreciate it. We're going to kind of tag team this presentation. This is Vicki Ayers-Portman with Invenergy. As Mr. Argo said, my name is Christy Spruill, and I serve on the External Affairs team for Public Service Company of Oklahoma, PSO. PSO is based out of Tulsa, but I home office from Isabella, so near Fairview. We're going to kind of talk about this North Central Energy facilities, give you an overview of how we identified the need for these facilities. Vicki's going to talk about project specifics in terms of timeline and construction and what that project is going to look like. And then I'll wrap it up by talking about what everybody's probably most interested in, which is the economic impact. So PSO, we are a public utilities company based out of Tulsa, primarily service the eastern and southwestern parts of the state, have about 500,000 electric customers in that region. So we don't serve electricity up in this area, but do serve about 232 towns across the state of Oklahoma. Something that's really important to us as we operate in those communities is being a good partner. So whether that's through volunteerism efforts or philanthropy. In 2018, we gave about $1.7 million to our partners in those communities. Those partners that we identify as priority areas are STEM education and then also community economic development. We also put a heavy emphasis on FFA and 4-H. We're happy to participate in the Alva Trophy auction a couple weeks ago, and we'll be in Woodward at the district show tomorrow night, participating in that as well. So PSO has been around for over 100 years, and in the past couple of years really identified a need for more renewable energy. That request came from our customers, both our commercial customers that have goals that they need to meet, that their stakeholders set for them, that such a percentage of their energy needs need to be met by either natural gas or wind, and then also our residential customers have a preference for it as well. And so the time is right, given the economics of the availability of natural gas and wind, for us to ramp up our consumption of both of those. So in January of 2019, we put out a request for proposals for this wind project, which we are collectively referred to as the North Central Energy Facilities. And Invenergy was awarded that contract. And so what that means is a build to transfer. Invenergy actually will build, there's 3 farms that we're going to talk about. Invenergy will build those farms. In the contract, it also states that they will operate those for at least 10 years. But PSO comes in and purchases those assets, and so we're the owner of the facilities. This was all pending approval from the Oklahoma Corporation Commission. We're happy to report that we got that approval on the 20th, about a week and a half ago or so. We received that approval from the Oklahoma Corporation Commission. We're still waiting for some outcomes in Arkansas and Louisiana and Texas. Our sister company, SWEPCO, is also involved in this project. So there's some additional megawatts that could impact the project size that can be picked up by those 3 other states. But we are a go in Oklahoma from our Corporation Commission standpoint, which is really great. So I'll let Vicki talk to you guys about the actual projects and timeline and construction and all that good stuff.
Great, thank you, Christy. So Vicki Ayers-Portman with Invenergy. I cover government and regulatory affairs here in Oklahoma for Invenergy. I'm based out of Guyman, and we actually farm and ranch also outside of Guyman. So we all know how tough it is in northwest Oklahoma for sure. But so just real quick, I wanted to kind of give you a background of who Invenergy is, and so I gave you each a trifold there if you want to read that at some point. But our headquarters are actually based in Chicago, and our Western Division is in Denver. We have an office here in Alva, over here right on College. And then Vanna Fuquay is our admin over there. No, she's from here in Alva. And then we have an office in Enid and one in Weatherford right now in Oklahoma for these projects. But we have over 23,000 megawatts of renewable energy in our portfolio. That's wind, solar, gas, and battery storage across the United States, Poland, Japan, quite a few different countries that we're moving into. So that information's in there, and I put this in there too, as well as as Christy mentioned, the North Central Energy Facilities. Our 3 projects that were awarded are Sundance, which is up in this region over towards Waynoka and south. We have the Maverick project, which is southwest of Enid, over around Ames and Drummond and kind of down through that area. Excuse me, and then we have Traverse, which is our southern project just north of Weatherford and kind of east up towards kind of the southwest of Watonga, kind of a large rectangular project area. So those are the 3 projects that Christy's talking about that are termed North Central Energy Facilities. And the main project that we want to talk about tonight, just to give you kind of a timeline and where we're at in the process here, is the Sundance project. And I also put a flyer in there to talk about it a little bit. It is the smallest of the 3 wind farms. It's about a 200 megawatt project. We'll be using the GE turbines, the 2.3 or 2.8, so we're still kind of engineering and configuring that out. The engineering teams have come in and done all of the due diligence on environmentals. And one thing I should also mention, most of you probably were or heard of Tradewind before. We actually purchased Sundance and Maverick, as well as several others from Tradewind several years ago. So those projects were purchased. At the time that Sundance and Maverick were purchased, Tradewind actually had determinations of no hazard already in place from the DoD and FAA to go ahead and build these projects. When we came on board, we wanted to sit down with Vance and make sure they understood we took over the projects. There were some conflicts that they weren't comfortable with, even though there were already DNHs in place for us to construct. We wanted to be the good partner and sit down with them to make sure they were comfortable with where we were constructing. So with that, we basically recited the majority of the Sundance project. So in September, we refiled what they call 7460s with the FAA and DoD to once again go through that process to get our determination of no hazards for each of the turbine sites. So we are still kind of waiting for the DNHs. Hopefully in the next 30 to 60 days we'll have the final DNHs on those. We've sat down with Vance probably close to a dozen times over the last year and a half, and we feel confident and they're comfortable with where we're all at, and I think we're in a good place. So we're excited about that. As Christy mentioned, we did receive the OCC, or Oklahoma Corporation Commission approval almost 2 weeks ago, which will allow PSO to purchase up to 675 megawatts. All 3 projects together are about 1,485 megawatts collectively, about a $2 billion investment that we're making. There'll be about 600, give or take, construction jobs for all 3 projects, about 50 permanent jobs collectively for all 3 projects. For this smaller project, probably somewhere around 6 to 8 full-time wind technicians and staff here to operate the Sundance project. So we're kind of hoping to, if everything goes well, like Christy mentioned, we're still waiting on Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas, which a couple of those we aren't probably going to get until June or July to know for sure how much they're going to be willing to purchase, or if they approve purchase. And there's some flexibility where some of the states can flex up. If some of the other states don't take as much, other states can flex up. So we're kind of in that holding pattern to see what the total number is going to look like. Our capacity availability is up to 1,485 megawatts for all 3 projects. And then we'll have to kind of see how that plays out. But the Sundance project, part of why these 3 projects are so attractive is there's still a federal production tax credit in place that is sunsetting. And so in order to keep the rates the lowest possible for the PSO and other customers, WEPCO customers, we're trying to get the projects built in time to capitalize on the federal tax credits for the customers of the utilities. So Sundance will need to be online by the end of this year in order to fully capitalize on those tax credits. And then Maverick and Traverse will come online by the end of next year in order for them to be able to capitalize on the tax credits. So it's kind of a quick timeline. We're still, like I said, we still have a little bit of ball to play, and hopefully we're back here, late spring, early summer to say we're going to have a ribbon cutting or or groundbreaking anyway. So yeah, we're excited to be a part of the community, and Benergy, just as PSO, is very involved in our communities that we are in. In 2018, we gave out over $500,000 in the wind sector that we have to our communities, and kind of the STEM cycle. We're also very big with veterans, so we do a lot of veterans programs. We just won the award for having the most veterans employed in the renewable energy sector at Benergy, so we're proud of that as well. So schools, obviously emergency services, those kind of things are what we like to dedicate to. And we paid out in 2018 to their wind communities alone, not solar and gas, but a little over $107 million directly to our landowners for land leases, as well as wages for staff. So in this particular project, because PSO is going to be the owner after we build, the day we go live, we transfer ownership over to PSO and SWEPCO. They will be the taxpayers for your ad valorem tax, and they'll be centrally assessed through that process. So Christy can talk a little bit more about those impacts through the study we had done.
Yeah, so OSU, their agricultural economics department did an economic impact study for us, and it's highlighted on the handout that I gave you. Obviously, a project of this size, there's quite the ripple effect when you talk about spending directly related to this project, as well as related industry spending and linkages. When you've got 600 construction jobs, our hope is that, and what the data shows, is an increase in sales tax revenue in communities where those construction workers are staying in motels, RV parks, eating dinner. There's also the impact from those full-time jobs as well. Those wind technician jobs are very good paying jobs. They're careers. And so I encourage you guys in the education sector, as you know, students, Vicki talks about this a lot, about what a good fit it is for our rural students to work in that wind technician setting. There's mechanics, there's IT with it. It's like our rural kids are used to. It's working in the elements. It's working till the job is done, and that's an opportunity for our students to stay here in Northwest Oklahoma, to not have to move to Kansas or Texas to get that good paying job. So that's something that's really exciting to us as well. Like Vicki said, this project as a whole is projected to have about a $2 billion economic impact. Something that doesn't affect us here is also the savings that are going to get passed on to PSO customers. It's about $1 billion worth of savings to PSO customers, but I sure don't mind us making money out here in Northwest Oklahoma on the needs of those in Tulsa, so I'm fine with that. The ad valorem impact from these projects over the 30 years of the project, and you look at it collectively, is about $680 million. Obviously, K through 12 is the big benefactor of that. About $480 million is going to go to K through 12. Just shy of $60 million is going to go to our career techs in the district. So Northwest Tech, you'll see an hit from that. Autry Tech, as well as Chisholm Trail, are going to be the main benefactors from that. And that leaves about $135 million to go into the county funds then for ad valorem. So as Vicki mentioned, PSO, we are centrally assessed. We are the third largest property taxpayer in the state. But what centrally assessed means, that's good news for y'all. So centrally assessed means that the Oklahoma Tax Commission assesses us. We're not assessed by your county assessor. So we're not going to run into Woods County assessor saying a turbine is valued at this, Custer County says it's this, Major County says it's this. There's going to be consistency because it's assessed by the Oklahoma Tax Commission. Also, we don't get into the issue of protests and holding up money. Third largest property taxpayer in the state, like, we know that's what you do. So that money flows back out to our schools and our counties through that project. And so land is leased in the Alva School District. Turbines are set to be located within the Alva School District. And so that's something that we look forward to this community benefiting from. And why I met with Mr. Argo last fall was to talk about, here's something we can't tell you an exact dollar amount right now. But we do want everybody to be on the same page, know that this is an investment that is coming, know that you've got two large companies that are now in the area that want to help. But we can't do that unless we know what's going on too, and so if there's needs that the school district has that falls within our realms of giving, those are something we want to be notified about. Not saying that we can say yes every time, but we certainly can't say yes if we don't know. And so we want to create that relationship that you guys can reach out and say, we've got this initiative going, can we plug in? So that's what we look forward to doing. And like you said, I hope we're back in a couple months
and a
to
quick
say,
nutshell.
but we're happy to answer any questions that you guys have as well.
Can you tell us about, could you speculate maybe about how many wind turbines we'll have in our district?
Well, so we have filed, as I mentioned, the sites with the FAA and DOD, so that is public. I believe there are around 9 or 10 in the school district here. Now, those still aren't final because they haven't been approved for sure, so we don't want to, say for sure, but we'll, like I said, hopefully when we get the DNHs back, we'll have a much better idea, because we also have alternate sites in case they weren't comfortable with some, we may have to switch some around or that kind of thing, but hopefully we'll be back, we can maybe get a closer answer to that in the next 60 days. And even then, we still have to wait on the approvals, of course, to come back from the other states, so we know collectively how much wind power is going to need to be built. There may be some of those turbines that, don't get built depending on how much power is actually purchased. So there's a lot of ball to play, a few hurdles, and we want to be as transparent with you as we can, but we definitely don't want to sit here and tell you something that's not going to happen. So yeah, hopefully we'll keep you posted as we know more. We'd love to come share that information with you as we receive DNHs and the approvals. So.
What's DNH?
Determination of no hazard. I'm sorry. I thought I mentioned that at the beginning, but yes. Yeah, determination of no hazard. Because of the low-level training routes in the area for bands. So.
Your project produces a lot of unique, between the bats and Freedom
Yes.
and the Air Force Base. Yeah. Sundance has a lot of unique characteristics.
A lot of
We have a lot of wind. We have a lot of wind. We're happy to have do something with.
Yes,
So.
amen to that. That's, exactly right. Yeah, so we have done a lot of the environmental processes, and because of some of the bats, we have had to move up off of that area as well. And so there's always a lot of you start out with this big square of purchasing these leases. And then you X out this because of bats, and this because of training routes, and this, and then you same thing. Sure, yeah, same thing. So you kind of end up with this.
Messed up their environment. They're pretty loud, actually. Windmills.
There's something I should have mentioned too when we were talking about the economic impact is the lease payments to the landowners on that study. Just within the first 5 years, you're looking at about $5 million. And so when you talk about local dollars, there's a big impact there from farmers and ranchers, if they're coming into town and buying a vehicle, or they're supporting the local co-op, or whatever that money, paying off notes at Alva State Bank, whatever it might be, that's sure a stimulus to our local economy is those lease payments. It's pretty cool, the number of landowners that we hear say, this saved the family farm. And so it's really good for communities in a lot of ways.
Thank you all.
Thank you so
you.
much, we appreciate it.
And you're welcome to stay, or you're welcome to Will or us.
I might get home for
Get out of
your
here
time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item of current business. 6.1, presentation of the dropout report by Alva High School Principal Les Potter.
This is going to be the boring report, but it's good news. We don't have any dropouts at Alva High School. If you'll remember back a couple of years ago, they started the new school report card and different things like that, and students start in a cohort when they're in middle school, and then we have to track that cohort all the way through, whether they stay with us and exit, finish out the year for us or those things, or if they exit for one reason or another. And all those students are tracked and coded. Just this last year, we had 6 freshmen that exited to a diploma issuing school, and that's a code, that means they went somewhere else, they went to another school. We had 2 sophomores, 4 juniors, and 1 senior. The good news of that is we tracked all of those, and like I said, I was going to say earlier, if you'll remember back, we didn't do a great job earlier because we didn't really have to until the state started including that dropout number in our school report card. So we had to go back, even though we knew where some of those kids went, we didn't go back and put them in the report like we should have done that. And we've gone back and chased those kids and found kids, and I talked to a kid that actually ended up being a dropout, but he's working for a body shop just up in Kansas and doing great. And he's got a little girl, and he's awesome. And so my thing is, even though we may have a few dropouts here and there are some good stories with kids that went on and have done some productive things to do that. So anyway, he didn't count against us, and so that was a good thing, but I did want to track him just because he's one of the kids that's kind of stuck with me, and so that was a good story. But we are happy to report we had no L20 is the code. We had no L20 dropout kids, so it's good.
Thank you, Mr. Potter. And Ms. Smithy, thank you to her also.
She did a good job chasing some kids down, so she's worked hard.
It's interesting because it's got to be easier for us in the smaller communities than some of these bigger ones because, you can lose track of people so easily in bigger towns. And we know how many tails you have to chase. There's always somebody kind of knows a little trail that it's like chasing a rabbit.
Facebook's been pretty valuable. We sent him a message on
Sure.
Facebook, and I waited a couple of days for that
And they'll
kid
come
to
back.
get back to me, and he did, and it was...
And when they know it's for something like that, they're probably more than happy
He's
to.
like, he shared his whole life.
I don't know the library fine or anything. I'm happy to talk to you, Mr. Potter. So.
I don't want money.
How old is that
I
library
just want to
fine?
know what you're doing. How's life?
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's really kind of a
It was
positive
satisfying.
thing. It is.
Yeah.
It's a pain to do, but at the whole end of it, it's a real satisfying thing. So thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you for giving us that positive report. That's good. 6.2, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve a contract with Ignite Physical Therapy and Sports Rehab for physical therapy services for the remainder of fiscal year 20.
And so this contract is going to be able to replace our previous contract with Today's Therapy. Ignite will continue our physical therapy services in school with our students through the remainder of this school year, and then we'll open that back up for interviews and quotes again for the next fiscal year. I would recommend this approval for our students.
I'd make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Slater,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
McDermott,
Aye.
Kane,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
6.3, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve the revised extra duty assignments for fiscal year 20.
So the revisions to the extra duty assignment schedule, we've been looking for a boys middle school track coach throughout the year and into last summer, and Mr. Paul Hamilton has stepped up to take on that responsibility. And so we're thankful that he is doing that. He will do a great job. A few weeks ago, Mrs. Christensen, had a sign
Roll
up
call her Mrs.
for her track teams. And as you can imagine, she's done a fantastic job, and we have, and you know, we're going to say close to 100 students are interested, and that's exciting. Now, will they all follow through? But even still, what that becomes is when you go to a track meet, that there's a lot of logistics that go into that. And so Ms. Martini and myself felt like it was really important that we make sure and that we have adequate adult supervision. And so we've added an assistant along with our previous assistant position. And what that's going to allow us to do, when we take 2 buses, we've got 2 adults on every bus. And then we'll have 4 adults at our track meets. And so I appreciate Ms. Martini. She has gone around and visited with staff. And so Mr. Hornsby is going to be our boys' assistant. And Mrs. Hayda will be our girls' assistant. And so it's going to be a great track season, and I'm excited for those kids and excited for that program. And so if you don't have any questions, I would recommend the approval to this revised extra duty assignment schedule.
I might add, I went to pick up today, so excellently organized. They were, I mean, it was a well-oiled machine the very first day. It was just like,
Pretty
wow.
impressive.
It was so nice, and I was proud of them, and they were working hard, and so I do appreciate the extra effort. We've got a lot of kids. I appreciate it very much. We need a motion to approve those.
I make a motion we approve.
Second,
Hanson,
Yes.
Kane,
yes.
McDermott,
Aye.
Parker,
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
6.4, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve, jumped on me, the renewal of contracts for the following principals for fiscal year '21. Stephanie Martini, Alva Middle School, Allison Tucker, Longfellow Elementary, Shane Feely, Washington Elementary.
All our principals have done a great job, and I think you've been able to see that as we have presented throughout the school year. Our strategic plan has been the basis for our decision making and involvement of staff. Commend them on their collaboration with our teachers. We have many committees, and we've got lots of involvement, and there's been lots of collaboration. Evaluation is an ongoing process, and I appreciate their work, and I would recommend the approval of hiring Ms. Martini, Mrs. Tucker, and Mr. Feely for FY21.
So moved.
Second.
Hanson,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
McDermott,
Aye.
Larry Parker,
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
We do appreciate all the support from all of you. As we know, we've had a lot of initiatives, and we appreciate it very much. We see, it's been fun to watch us move in the right direction. We appreciate it. 6.5, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve out-of-state travel request for the Alva FFA to attend livestock judging contests on April 3rd, 2020 in Fort Scott, Kansas, and April 21st, 2020 in Hutchinson, Kansas.
This has been a routine agenda item for the last few years, and I would ask the board to approve this out-of-state travel request for our FFA livestock judging team.
So moved.
Second.
Hanson,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
McDermott,
Aye.
Parker,
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
6.6, discussion with possible board action, vote to approve an out-of-state travel request for Electric Gold to travel to Texas, April 8th through 11th, 2020.
Thank Ms. Belil and our Electric Gold Booster Club and Mr. Potter. They have worked together to find a trip that rewards those Electric Gold students. And so from their recommendation, I would ask that the board approves this out-of-state travel request.
I make a motion that we approve the out-of-state travel.
Second.
Hanson,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
McDermott,
Aye.
Parker,
Yes.
Slater.
Yes.
7, Propose executive session to conduct ongoing evaluation of superintendent per 25 Oklahoma State Statute, Section 307B1. Vote to convene an executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Slater?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
McDermott?
Aye.
Kane?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Thank you.